Hello everyone, welcome to this week's broadcast. Now, if you are watching this live, if you've been following me at all, listening to the podcast, you will notice that this is actually taking place on Tuesday evening at 6:47, which is about 24 hours later than planned. I'll spare you the detail of the drama of my tech issue then. But here I am, I'm back ready to talk to you about imposter syndrome and high expectations. I'm Caroline Flanagan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a certified coach. I am a keynote speaker. And in fact, the reason why if you're watching the broadcast, I'm all dressed up wearing one of my signature red dresses, because I've just come off delivering one of my 2-hour allyship programs, which was amazing, so fulfilling, so enjoyable, so powerful. So yes, I'm a little bit in presentation mode. So watch out, I warn you, I'm bringing all the energy here today. So I'm a keynote speaker, as I've just said. I'm also the author of Be the First, and I'm the host of the Caroline Flanagan podcast. So if you are listening to this on the podcast, a huge shout out to you. It's great to have your support. So today's topic then, how do you deal with imposter syndrome when it's caused or triggered by high expectations? Now, this is a question that was put to me at one of my imposter syndrome sessions. The great news about these sessions is it always provokes lots of very healthy, very positive discussion at the end. But what almost invariably happens is I don't have time to answer all of the questions. So what I've decided to do is tackle some of those questions on these weekly broadcasts for you, and also so you can share the benefit of the answers. So first of all, then, what I'm going to do is share with you, there's 4 steps I want to share with you today about how you can use the imposter speech, your imposter speech, which is the solution that I've created for you to help you solve your imposter syndrome, turn it into a strength. There's 4 steps involved in helping you to deal with the high expectations. Step number 1 is to clean up your thinking. Yeah, so long before we even get to your speech, what your speech can do for you, I want you to think about, reflect on where your brain is going, what your brain activity is. And there's certain things I want you to look out for. First of all, the fact that you are describing either the action or the words that somebody says to you, it might be a family member, it might be your boss, the fact that you are describing them as high expectations means that you have loaded that factual situation with some degree of emotion, right? So that your average person might hear that comment or be in a particular scenario where they see certain behavior and think that that's no big deal. They might hear your parent saying, oh, I know you can do it. I know you can do really well in your exams. I think I've got exams on the brain at the moment. My eldest Dylan is doing his A-levels. My 16-year-old, my second son, is doing his GCSE. So I'm a bit caught up in exams. But if it's not an exam for you, it might be something major, a big project that you've got coming up. And objectively, somebody saying to you, I know you can do it, or you should go for that, you're perfectly capable, you should be aiming higher. That can seem really neutral to somebody else. It could seem like something really positive to someone else. But to you, you experience it, you think about it as high expectations. And that's what's triggering your imposter syndrome. So the first part of cleaning up your thinking is recognizing that you even describing what is going on as high expectations is your brain in sort of adding its own interpretation to a kind of neutral set of facts that may or may not be objectively high or not. The second part of cleaning up your thinking, and actually before I go on to that, what's the whole purpose of cleaning up your thinking? It's to move you away from feeling powerless, right? So all of this about cleaning up your thinking, really being aware of your thoughts, is to move you from a situation where you feel, oh, I don't know what to do with this, there's no answer, there's no solution, into a situation where we can create the solution, where we can find opportunities to solve the issue. So I've said the first thing about cleaning up your thinking is being aware of the fact that you have added your own judgment to a set of what is effectively neutral facts about what someone said or what someone did. You've added the judgment that it's high expectations. It already puts a little bit of pressure on you. It already triggers in you that self-defensive reaction, doesn't it? Second thing I want you to do to clean up your thinking is be super aware of all or nothing thinking. So if you say to me, my family have high expectations of you, I want to say back to you what all of your family, what every single one, what did your father say? What did your mother say? What did your husband or your wife or your partner say? What did your children say? What I want you to do is I want to unpick that all or nothing thinking. Because as soon as we say everybody within a particular group, or if this is applying, for example, in your workplace, as soon as you feel that everyone in your team or everyone in the firm is maybe uninclusive, anytime we talk in generalities like that, we're indulging in all or nothing thinking. And when we do that, we miss the opportunity to find a solution. And we're not open to finding that solution, because all we can think of is, this is the way it is, everybody's like that, there's nothing I can do. Again, powerlessness. Third thing I want you to do to clean up your thinking is recognize when what you're doing is you are focused on the external. In other words, it's all about what's happening to you. So if you feel there's an issue or a challenge, your focus is on the external circumstances, those factors. I had an interesting coaching session with one of my dear clients this morning about that very fact. And her conviction is that, when the external, it's all about the external circumstances, and therefore the solution can only be in changing the external circumstances. So in the case of somebody having high expectations of you, that's all about what's happening outside of you, then the only thing you feel you can do is, or the only solution you think is possible or viable, is if they change their expectations. In other words, if what's happening outside of you changes and switches in order to fix the problem. What does that do? Again, really establishes you as powerless. You're dependent on them changing, doing something different in order to resolve the situation. And powerless is not where I want you to be. We are all about looking at those situations, finding our power in those, stepping into your imposter syndrome, turning it to a strength to help you solve the situation. So step one then, clean up that thinking. Recognize when your thoughts are actually likely to make you resistant to finding a solution. The second step I want you to take is to narrow your focus. Now, my favorite expression for this at the moment is it's like the world peace problem. What often happens, what I hear so many of you doing, is saying, oh, a bit like this, my family has high expectations. How can I fix that? How can I deal with it? Or my firm is not inclusive or not diverse. What can I do about that? So it's a bit like the all or nothing thinking. But the point is in terms of how you solve it, it's very difficult to solve the high level problem. It's very difficult to come up with an answer, a solution to world peace, for example. But if you are able to get really specific, look at a community, look at a village, look at a town, look at a country, and approach the problem from that perspective, it's so much more manageable. You can get more information, you're more informed, you can apply strategies, see what works, and see what doesn't, and iterate and find a solution, which not only creates a solution in that more specific context, but which then gives you the learning, the confidence, the tools to then apply it again and again and again. It's a bit like one of my favorite expressions about eating an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? I say to my youngest son, Max, who's 9, when he's overwhelmed with his English homework. And he rolls his eyes because he's heard me say it a million times before. You do it one bite at a time. So this is what narrowing your focus is all about. It's about looking at specific scenarios and addressing the specific scenario. So if you come to me, if you were a client or we were having this as a live coaching session, you say to me, my family has high expectations of me, I would say, tell me when the last time was, that a recent time when that happened. What exactly happened? What was said? And we'd narrow our focus down to one situation and we would apply our solution to that situation. If you come to me and say, my organization doesn't recognize me, doesn't value me, I'd say to you, think of one specific circumstance recently when you felt undervalued. What happened? When we break it down like that, it's so much more manageable. We can see much more clearly and apply our solutions. So 2 bits of really important preparatory work before you even get to applying the imposter speech, using it to deal with this situation of high expectations. Clean up your thinking, narrow your focus. So now we've narrowed our focus. We're looking at a particular individual incident. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to, and this is step 3, I want you to lean into your imposter syndrome. Lean into it. What do I mean by that? It means, first of all, separate out the facts from your thoughts. A little bit like at the beginning when I talked about cleaning up your thinking, and how even the words high expectations are really your creation. It's your interpretation of a set of facts. What I want you to do is to really look a lot more closely at a specific situation, which is the example, right? I talked about we're narrowing our focus, and I want you to separate them out. What are the facts? And then what are my thoughts about the facts? So an example, my boss expects me to be able to deliver at this ridiculously high level, and I can't achieve it. Now, the facts of that situation will be specifically what your boss said. He may not have said, I want you to deliver at a ridiculously high level that you can't achieve. He may have said, I'd like this to be done by tomorrow evening, and I'd like it to be top standard. Yeah, those are the facts, what was said. Then what we have is your interpretation of those facts, which is my boss has these high expectations of me that I cannot achieve. That's all your thought about the facts. Very important, again, as I said, to separate those out. Why is that? Why? Because it gives you a sense of authority over the situation. Also helps you to recognize where you internally are contributing to triggering your own imposter syndrome. Remember what I said about cleaning up your thoughts around thinking it's all about what's happening externally? This is what helps you to see that. You see what was said, and then you see your thoughts about what you said, and you separate those out. And I really encourage you to write this down. Literally write facts and write down the facts. Write my thoughts about the facts and write down those thoughts. It is incredible how just the processing of your thinking, processing of that information and articulating it onto a piece of paper, having to make sense of it and write it down already is such a powerful process that already starts to move you towards a solution. You start to get more clarity, see things more clearly. So you separate the true facts, as I said. Then you've got the thoughts. So you've written those down, and what you will realize is what they effectively amount to is you feeling like an imposter. It might not be what you write down, but what you write down might be something like, oh, I am, I'm not up to this. I don't deserve this. This is, my success so far is down to luck, so I could never do this. Somebody else is more qualified than me. All those different ways in which our imposter syndrome is triggered and then speaks to us, right? So I kind of want you to identify the voice of your imposter syndrome. What does it usually say? What are the words that it typically uses? I know mine always is quite predictable in that it'll say you're a fraud, you don't deserve to be here, your luck is running out. That's one of the most powerful ones. Any minute now, you're going to be exposed. So for me, that's what I'd be writing out at this stage of writing out my thoughts. Now, the third thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to acknowledge your feelings about this situation. So your feelings about the facts and the thoughts you're having about the facts, really try to identify and name the emotion that it triggers in you. So you've got a boss who has high expectations. You've written you've got a boss who says something to you like, I expect things to be done tomorrow at this standard. You have the thought that he has too high expectations of me. I'm an imposter. My luck's running out. Somebody else should be doing this. They'd be much better. I can't live up to those expectations. Those are all your thoughts. I'm an imposter. And then the feelings that triggers. Again, I'm really clear. All the work I've done my imposter syndrome, I know the feelings. I know the emotion. It's fear. It's anxiety. It's stress. Again, write those down. It's super important. This is actually a process, a practical step-by-step that I'm giving you here. And it makes me think about how many times people say to me, yeah, but can I have something practical to do? What's the practical tip? And there's a real hunger for something to do. So if that is you, if you're someone like that, then honestly, take out a piece of paper and a pen and write, work through these steps the way I have described them. So writing down then that third step, which is part of the leaning into your imposter syndrome stage, you write down the emotion, write down what they are so you can look at them. And then what I'm going to ask you to do, which is really quite challenging, is I want you to just stay there. I want you to accept the emotion and the thoughts and everything that's going on with you in that moment. Now, this is hard. This is where most people get stuck, because what we want to do, of course, because we're human beings, we don't like danger, we don't like feeling afraid, we don't like feeling uncomfortable, so we want to run away from it. We want to resist those awkward, painful feelings. Yeah, we're genetically programmed to do that. But I want to invite you to just stay with them. This requires a tolerance, a willingness to accept that sometimes you will feel negative emotions. Sometimes you'll feel anxious. You'll be fearful. You will doubt yourselves, right? So it's really important that you recognize that that's part of the human condition. It's also they're very healthy emotions. They're important emotions that support our experience of the world. And one of the most important messages I want to give to you is that one of your goals should be to build your emotional resilience. I would be doing you such a disservice if I was saying to you, no, we need to get rid of the fear. We need to get rid of the anxiety. I'm going to help you get rid of all of that. As if you could just wipe those negative emotions out of your life and go on and live to 100, never experiencing fear or anxiety again. It's crazy. The next time you're faced with a challenging situation, the next time you have to step out of your comfort zone, fear, anxiety, a bit of stress may be waiting for you. But the wonderful news is what I'm teaching you here today, what you learn and get from your imposter syndrome, your imposter speech, and all the work you do on your imposter syndrome is emotional resilience, the ability to experience those emotions, to recognize them, and then know what to do with them, know how to move on instead of staying stuck in the moment and really fighting with them. Why acceptance? What does that give you? As well as the resilience it builds up, it gives you authority over your emotion. When you write those words down and you can take a look at them, right, and you allow them, you're not caught up in trying to run away from them, you then have the clarity and the energy to move on to the solution. Yeah, but only when you've done that and really acknowledged your own process when dealing with a situation you find challenging, only when you've done that are you ready then to step into the fourth part, which is to use your imposter speech to show up as who you are. And this is the bit where I get super excited. I almost can't wait. I'm almost racing to this point where I can talk about the imposter speech because of how absolutely life-changing it has been for me. So the final step then, dealing with high expectations. You've cleaned up your thinking, you've narrowed your focus to a specific scenario that you're looking at, you've lent into the imposter syndrome that scenario triggers in you, and now you're going to respond by showing up as who you are. How do you do that? You stop making the mistake of trying to act your way out of it. Stop trying to do so much in order to escape it. Because what does doing do? It sends us off in the wrong direction. When you're so focused on what you can do, it leads to things like perfectionism, right? If I can just get this perfect, as long as I'm doing something, then I must be surely getting closer to a solution. I must be, that must be the way that I'm not going to be found out. Very fear-based activity, not helpful. Might help you to get some of the work done, but it just increases the stress, increases the anxiety, and it's not sustainable, right? Another thing that happens when you focus only on what you can do, you're so reliant on external validation. So what you're doing is you're trying to take action that is going to really get somebody else to recognize you, to tell you you're valuable, to tell you you've done a good job. I know a lot of you are very dependent on external validation. somebody else out there to tell you that you are good enough. And I'm here to tell you, you can validate yourself, and it's the most important work that you could ever do. External recognition is fine. It's great when other people say they recognize your achievements and they talk about that, but we don't want your self-worth to be dependent on somebody else's decision or mood or inclination to decide to tell you that you're valuable or not. So what we want to do is move away from the kind of what can I do action. Sometimes what happens is when you're caught up in trying to find something to do and you latch onto something maybe potentially ambitious, like if I could just do this, I'll work all night and get it done. What happens? Just the fear of that, the stress that you're still in, it causes you often to procrastinate, to put it off. And the stress mounts over time. And guess what? Last minute, you find yourself stressed, trying to do things perfectly, worrying about whether you're going to get the external validation. Oh my gosh, just even thinking about that course of action now that I don't take that approach, I can feel the stress in my veins, and I'm just describing it to you. I know really well. I used to be like that myself. I know only too well what fear-based activity, trying to act your way out of your imposter syndrome, it just creates more stress in the long run. Maybe some short-term relief if it gets you through the next hurdle, but it will just all come back the next time you're under pressure. So don't make that mistake of focusing on what you can do. Instead, I want you to focus on, if you've been listening to me, you should be able to guess this, on who you are. So who are you? I'll tell you who you are. You are courageous. You are motivated. You are authentic. You're resourceful. You're resilient. You're purposeful. You're committed. You are all of those things. And your most important work is to know this about yourself, to be able to prove this to yourself at any given moment, and to be able to step into the truth of these things about you whenever you need to, at your choice. I'll repeat that. Your most important work is to know that you are courageous, motivated, committed, authentic, resourceful, and purposeful and resilient. Yeah, you're all of those things. You need to be able to prove it to yourself, and you need to be able to step into the truth of it at any given moment. And how you do that is by having your imposter speech. It's exactly what this is designed to do. And here's what you get when you do that. When you have the imposter speech at your disposal, as I've been teaching you that you need to do and how you need to use it, then your confidence grows. The act of even creating your speech is building your confidence in layers. It's creating this solid foundation for you to go out into the world and do your thing. So your confidence grows, and it grows in two things, right? When you have your imposter speech, it gives you the courage, right, to do the task in front of you, to take that next step, okay? And by doing that, the more frequently you use your imposter speech to give you courage in that moment to do that, you will end up getting better at the skill. So I've used, for example, my imposter speech so much when it comes to stepping onto a stage, whether a virtual one or a real one. I've used it to get me to take that brave, courageous step, right? And the more I use it, obviously the more practice I'm getting as a speaker, and I have done over the years, but obviously the better speaker I have become, the better I'm getting at it. But it's not just that. You also get more confidence in your own ability to cope with different situations, quite frankly, to cope with anything. And if there's one thing I have proved to myself over the last 5 years or so, it's that I have learned how to cope with whatever comes my way. My imposter speech gives me the confidence to know that if I go out and I fail tomorrow, if I do something, I mess it up, if something goes wrong, if I'm caught short, I have the tools and the skill to get myself out of that situation. I'm brought back to the core identity of my courage, my authenticity, my motivation, my resourcefulness, my resilience, my purposefulness, my committedness. all of that. Commitment, I think, is the word rather than committedness. You know what I mean. Excitement, that's what it does to me. It makes me jumble my words. But knowing I have all of that makes me so prepared for whatever's around the corner. Remember, I say that life is an arena. That means there is that thing around the corner waiting for you that is unexpected. There is the challenge, there is the setback, the failure. And your only job is to be ready for that. Do the work on your imposter speech, have that ready. You will be ready for that. As well as your confidence grows, it doesn't end there. You also evolve. Yeah, every time you use that speech, every time it gives you the courage to do something you would otherwise be fearful of, or it gives you the motivation to do something you're shying away from, you are becoming a different person. You are evolving into another version of yourself. Can you see how that happens and how with repeated use, it happens over time? I honestly can promise you that who I am today is almost unrecognizable to who I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 4, 5 years ago. And it's not because I look older, although I probably do. I think probably it's because I've been using my speech for years. Every time my speech gets me through a challenging situation, every time it's there for me when I might need to pick myself up, yeah, it changes me in what it allows me to do and the experience that it allows me to have and the trust that it creates between me and myself, right? Is that possible? Trust between me and myself? The trust I have in myself to be able to cope with what comes. I'm a different person. And for those of you, I often get asked, so tell me, do you still have imposter syndrome? I get asked that all of the time. I might do a podcast just on that very question. It's an interesting point. And the answer is, I most certainly do. Remember the fear, the anxiety, the stress? Do you remember I said your job isn't to get rid of those, right? Your job is to be able to be in the moment, be in the emotion of those feelings, right? I still have those. They are still very much triggered. The point is, I know what to do with them. I know how to channel that experience, channel my imposter syndrome make it into my strength. And I know how to do that because I have my imposter speech. And I want you to have that at your fingertips as well. It's so valuable, so important. And as a last point, you're evolving, right? But do you know what else is happening? Your potential is increasing. The more you are willing to do this work, to use your imposter speech to help you be braver, more motivated, more committed than ever before, and the more you see the results coming in from that, right, and you evolve, suddenly what you can achieve, your potential for success is even greater. As you evolve, so your potential grows too. I just think that's just the most exciting thing on the planet. Okay, so and that's it, right? That's the 4 steps. Show up as who you are. And I like to, in terms of really just summing up what that means for you and someone showing up as who you are in a situation, to bring this full circle to, there are high expectations of you. You feel, because of your imposter syndrome, that you're not up to them. It should be someone else. It's down to luck what you've done so far. You're going to be exposed as a fraud. When that is triggered by high expectations, the way you deal with it is to show up as someone who has the courage to risk failure, someone who has the motivation to move forward, the freedom to grow and still be authentic, not be caught up in, oh, that's not me, I'm not naturally like that. Show up as someone who has the resourcefulness to be able to find whatever you need in that situation, in any situation, someone who has the resilience to cope with what that situation throws at you, and somebody who has the commitment to seeing it through. That is how you show up as who you are. And that's how you deal with high expectations. I'm Caroline Flanagan. Thank you so much. Gosh, I so enjoyed delivering that through to you. If you caught this on the replay, please add your comments. Let me know what you think. Do you feel the pressure from other people to to live up to their high expectations? Does that trigger your imposter syndrome? And have the 4 steps that I've shared with you, cleaning up your thinking, narrowing your focus, leaning into your imposter syndrome, and then showing up as who you are using your imposter speech to do that. Has that helped you? Do you think you could put that into practice? Thank you so much for listening to all of this. I hope you found it useful. If you like this material, please don't forget to subscribe, whether to the podcast or to the YouTube channel, and let me know if there are any questions that you'd like me to address at a future date. Bye for now.